Hello everyone, this is another Pass the Baton interview with the Centre for Technology Enhanced Learning, or CTEL, at Lancaster University. As you'll know if you've seen any other episodes, Pass the Baton is a great initiative where alumni and doctoral researchers at the centre interview each other. The interviewee becomes the interviewer and so on, hence the name Pass the Baton. There are now at least 3 batons going round as we speak in February 2022. Those batons are heading in different directions, which is, great news. Today I'm really lucky to be chatting with Rob Graham. Rob's a fellow alumni member of CTEL. He was in Cohort 5. He's living in North Bay, a beautiful part of Canada. Rob consults with business and education leaders, and we'll find out a little bit more about him in a while. I'll just explain the format to people, Rob, before we start chatting. So in these conversations, the interviewer, and today that's me, picks somebody from the CTEL alumni or doctoral research community who they've always wanted to ask a few questions about TEL, and today that's Rob. The intended audience includes people who are thinking about the TEL programme, people currently on the programme, and maybe people who've completed but for one reason or another aren't members of the centre just yet. So if that does describe you, please do get in touch so that we can keep you all informed. And if you're watching on YouTube, just click subscribe at the top right there and you'll be notified when we upload new content onto the CTEL channel. We've planned for around a 20-minute format, so Rob and I will say hello now and then we'll get going. I'm Phil Moffitt. I'm a teaching focused lecturer. I work at the Royal School of Military Engineering here in Kent in the UK, and I'm one of the alumni members of the centre. I was in Cohort 8, I think, of the TEL programme. I'm interested in technology and expansive learning, particularly for people like engineers and facilities managers in critical national infrastructure, where people quite often have a need for learning which is only identified at the time and point of that need, if that makes sense. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Rob, what you do when you went through the doctoral programme and what you've done since, that busy life you seem to lead?
Yeah, well, Phil, thank you so much. And Pass the Baton, I think, is just an incredible initiative. I'm so honored to be an alumni of Lancaster University. I know one of the former deans I worked with when I taught in the Faculty of Education said probably one of the best decisions I ever made was going to Lancaster. And Lancaster did such a wonderful job through that doctoral experience in CTEL of preparing me to be a university professor in my Faculty of Education and my research interest there. But now, as I've kind of transitioned my work, techno-resiliency, that I pioneered as a doctoral student at Lancaster, I've now transitioned that wonderful, solid pedagogical background in research that I gained as a doctoral student at Lancaster into now sharing my techno-resiliency and my most recent book that came out, Mandate to be Great. So I know we'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm just so happy to be connected with many people that are currently in the program and those that are looking to get into it. I'm probably one of the greatest champions for Lancaster because I really did just have a wonderful experience. And a quick shout out to Murray Saunders, Sue Cranmer, and Julianne Syme, who were very influential mentors of mine as I went through that program.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Fascinating experiences that we'll dig into a bit as we go on, hopefully. So in all that time, and I suppose in specific terms of what you've been working on since you finished your PhD, can you tell us what TEL has come to mean to you, perhaps how the PhD programme has made a difference to your conceptions of TEL, how you do your research and consultancy in TEL and so on?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, the whole notion of techno-resiliency that I developed and pioneered as a doctoral student at Lancaster, that theoretical foundation really was born as I was conducting my research in the TEL program. And I was really fortunate. What I really liked about the TEL program is I really connected with qualitative research methodologies. And for me, just having that opportunity through the research projects to really immerse myself into the different qualitative methodologies, that really did kind of captivate me. And techno-resiliency was kind of born out of and through those immersive research experiences. I will kind of share, like I said to you, Phil, in some of our preamble, I really set a goal when I entered the doctoral program at Lancaster to try to get all of my research modules published. And I also entered the program with a pretty steadfast and sound foundation about techno-resiliency and how I wanted to kind of build it. Obviously, that got sculpted and that got molded by my excellent advisors, and they helped me kind of evolve that thinking. But I tried to build all of my research modules up into towards doing my actual doctoral research, and I did get pretty much, I believe, every one of those research modules published. So if I can kind of give you a challenge, if you're starting to get into the program, or if you're in the program, I would really encourage you to at least get a couple of those research modules published. And if you set that goal, for me, I think that was really pivotal. And it really helped me when I did graduate from the program. I was able to publish my first book, which was Techno-Resiliency in Education, and then Mandate to Be Great, the 5 Traits of Techno-Resilient People and Organizations, kind of then was born out of that. So Lancaster just did a wonderful job of giving me the tools to kind of take what I'm doing now and transition into the business world. So I'm very thankful for that experience.
When you've mentioned your books there, where did the books fit in, Rob? Were they something that was were they books that were always in you, or did the doctoral program bring those books out, or what? Can you map out how that happened for us?
Well, the first book really that was published through an academic publisher, Springer Publishing. At the time, I was working as a university prof, and obviously working towards that tenure track. I mean, I was really set on trying to publish. And really what I was able to do with that first book is I was able to pretty much take my doctoral experience and really take the doctoral speak and that thesis and rework it into more of a layman's type of writing. And when I approached the publishers at Springer, they first of all, title sell, the notion of techno-resiliency, was quite appealing, and so I remember the publisher was very interested in that. And techno-resiliency is really just looking at workplaces and organizations and how do we reduce complexities and how do we find efficiencies in the workplace with regards to technology. That's like the Coles note, really minute. But what I do is I study organizations and people in organizations, and I look at how they overcome versus how they're overcome by some of the technological challenges that they face. Now, of course, post-COVID or in this COVID world, that's a pretty important task to put those types of what I call resilient practices under a microscope. Yeah. And how do we look at elevating professional practices specific to technology? And so what I've done is I've kind of bottled some of the lessons that I learned through my research, and now I share those with organizations and organizational leaders. So to answer your question, those books were always in me. I always wanted to, even as a young kid, I wanted to publish a book. I don't know why. I was a hockey player living in Canada, but I remember telling my grade 7 teacher one day I would write a book. So I think it was like almost like kind of a self-actualization, like just this, I really, really wanted to go down in life saying I had a book. So now I've got a couple of them, but the TEL experience provided me with something to write about that really was something that I think people today need to hear about and are obviously, based on the work I'm doing now, want to hear about.
Yeah. Why TEL then? Why TEL rather than I don't know, some of the other things you've clearly got a vested interest in, computer science, education management, perhaps even a DBA. Why did you pick TEL, Rob?
Well, really great question. And I started off at Nova Southeastern University in Miami, and it was more of a computer science program. Even though that's not where my heart was, yeah. It was almost a Ph.D. program that was more of a convenience, that it was a little closer, and it was one of the few doctoral programs that had and was going to allow me, because even when I went and spoke with them, and I was even talking about my notion of techno-resiliency even at that time, they were going to kind of allow me to kind of take that, and even they were going to allow me to use some qualitative research measures, but I didn't feel that it was a great fit. But what happened was that program was getting rid of all their international students, and they were making it really difficult for international students to be a part of that program. And I was going to have to fly to Miami every month, which was just not doable. Yeah. And I remember a colleague of mine at the university I was teaching at says, well, man, did you hear of Lancaster and their TEL program? And when I started to research it, it was just the fit.
Yeah.
because I was a teacher who many years ago was recognized for an information technology program that I developed that was, I'll say with a level of humility, that was a little bit ahead of its time. Even by today's standards, it was probably still ahead of its time 25 years ago. So to me, the TEL program and looking at the modules and looking at the fact there was a real vested interest in learning qualitative research methodologies, that was really important. But I mean, the second part was Lancaster University in Canada is it's a prestigious place to go. Like one of my deans told me, the best thing I ever did was went to Lancaster. I mean, it has a very solid reputation in Canada in academia. When you tell people that you're a graduate of Lancaster, right, and the fact that you actually accomplish that, the standards in England versus what goes on here in Canada, it's a different. It was a different learning experience, and I would say for the better. So I also wanted an international experience, Phil. I
Yeah.
wanted to meet people from different places around the world,
Yeah.
and for me going to tell that international experience, that exotic going to the UK, to me, meeting people from all over, to me that really heightened the journey and heightened the experience.
Well, that's interesting. Um, and I suppose as a kind of segue, really, is there anything that you'd particularly like to pass on to people considering that program at Lancaster, or perhaps even to pass on to people who have just started, or to people who are currently transitioning into the doctoral research phase? Any little sprinkles of wisdom that you'd like to
Yeah,
perhaps share?
yeah, for sure, Phil. I mean, I think a couple of things. And the one thing that I when I have done talks for doctoral students is it's really important to do something for your doctoral work every day. And I remember at the time I was a full-time professor teaching 500 to 600 university students, and using some of what I know, I had to do something for my research every day, even if it meant shuffling research papers, even if it meant, categorizing articles that I needed to read, even if it meant reading one research paper over my lunch break. I made a goal to do something every day. And that's how I was able to kind of maintain that momentum towards getting it completed. So the one little word of advice, and remember that time is a factor of nothing. It's not how much time you put into something, it's what you do with your time, right? So it's not a matter of having to spend hours necessarily, but it's quality versus quantity of time. So I made sure that I devoted a small amount of time daily to accomplishing, and that's how I kind of kept the momentum and the towards completion. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Um, I think another thing that I've already mentioned is if you haven't set a goal to at least minimum get 1 to 2 papers published. So coming out of the experience with at least a couple of publications, getting that feeling of satisfaction of getting something published and going through some of the rigor of getting a peer review publication. Again, I think that really supercharged me, knowing that I pretty much was able to get every one of my research modules published. Now, I'll give you another little tip. The way I was able to do that in some cases is I would take some of my graded research modules and I would go to a peer who maybe had a lot of experience in publications saying, hey, here's a module paper I did at Lancaster. Would you like to take a look at it? Maybe we can revisit it, rework it. The pedagogical and theoretical foundation is here. And there was about 1 or 2 papers that I was able to kind of collaborate with and then take that paper and then build on it and then get it even to a higher level that was able to get it published.
Yeah.
So that was another way that I was able to do that. And then the third and final thing I would say, and I know that a good friend of mine in the program, Andy Hollyhead, we've talked about this too, is I never ever thought I would say I would miss the experience, because in the height of it, you're cursing it and you're fatigued and you're thinking this journey's never going to end. But I can honestly say in hindsight, I really do miss the experience of going through it. And so try to savor every day, every moment, and enjoy the journey. I think sometimes we wish the journey away, and try to enjoy the journey, because when you do actually get to the top of that mountain, you will look back and say, man, that really was a great journey, and I wish I maybe had savored a bit more. So those are a few insights that I might offer, Phil.
Yeah, that's great sound advice. Thanks. Before I ask this next question, I should probably just explain to people that I suppose, like many of our alumni and doctoral research colleagues, we're dispersed across the world. You and I have never physically met, but we have met virtually at events and some of the online centre events. How do those CTEL activities help you in your research and consultancy and work and learning?
Well, again, I think in the 21st century, we are very much disconnected in terms of the physical realm, right? In terms of all the distance. But I think what the COVID pandemic has done, it's really shifted some of our thinking, and it's forced some academics and many educators and businesses into an uncomfortably technology enhanced workplace. And I think for some, if we look at, some of the positives, is that some people have had to be forced into a technology realm. And people have started to realize some of the potential of some of the collaborative software and some of the opportunities to connect in these virtual spaces and places.
Yeah.
So what I would say about the TEL Center, and even though many of us are dispersed in the physical sense, we really are able to connect virtually in some really amazing ways. And the fact that I'm sitting here in my drum room / office, and you're across the ocean so many miles away, Phil, but we're having this wonderful conversation, and you're seeing me and I'm seeing you, and this is just one very small application of a technology enhanced kind of working relationship. Yeah. So having the opportunity to know that I am still connected in a virtual sense to many of my colleagues all around the globe, that I'm still connected virtually in this sense to my alumni and friends at Lancaster. I get a real sense of pride in that, but I also know that I can pick up my Zoom call at any time and propose a research project, or if I have questions, I know that even my mentors from Lancaster are there for me. So you're still a part of this connected, globally connected world, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Have you got any current or imminent projects that you can share with us then, related to CTEL or not? Is there anything exciting we can watch out for with your name on it?
Well, I just finished working with Strategic Government Resources, and I was one of their keynote speakers just last week, and they're based out of Texas, and they do a lot of leadership for municipal businesses and organizations, and that was really exciting. Mandate to be Great, the book, hit Amazon.ca, and it's in the UK. I found out it's in Australia now. It's starting to pick up some momentum in the United States, and so I'm continuing to do some work around that. I am going to be potentially pursuing another professor's position at a university in Southern Ontario. I've been asked to consider applying for that, so I might be transitioning some of my work back into the university setting in another faculty of education. We'll see what happens there. But stay tuned. I hope if you haven't had a chance to check out Mandate to be Great, it was actually designed to be read on a 3-hour flight. So it was made specifically with the intention that a leader who had a 3-hour plane flight could pick the book up and read it. I hope to continue to build momentum around that, and we'll see if I end up back in a classroom at another university, because it's been a few years since I've been there. So that's what I'm up to, and very appreciative of having the opportunity to share with you, Phil, and many of our Lancaster colleagues and potential Lancaster students.
I've got a copy of it behind me. I must admit, it's taken me more than 3 hours, but that might be because I'm sort of enjoying it and looking at some of the signposts you sent us to as well. I would recommend it. It's great. I'll believe it or not, that's gone quick. We're just about to nudge up against 20 minutes. Really enjoyable, but we'll have to wind things up in a short while, which is a great shame. We've clearly learned a lot from you and what you've been up to. The last question now, when it comes to your interview, what kind of characteristics are you looking for the people you're going to interview? It's probably not wise to ask who you'll interview unless you already know, and they already know. But perhaps what sort of characteristics will you be thinking about when you take that baton?
I do have a couple people already in mind, and I'm not going to mention their names, but they will be people that I went through the Cohort 5 journey with, because one of the things I can almost assure you that you will develop some pretty close friendships because of the intensity of the program, and I do have some people that went through the program with that I still keep in touch with, and a couple people in particular that are doing some really incredible things and have taken their work to some different levels. And so I'll be probably reaching out to a couple of those people when I look to pass the baton. But they will be people that I shared this very intimate and exciting experience with. And I think because we have that connection and because we met in person and we spent a lot of time virtually, I think it would be great to reconnect during one of these pass the baton sessions.
Well, that'd be really great. We'll look out for that. We'll look forward to it. There you go. There's a baton for you.
I got it all the way here in North Bay, Ontario, Canada, Phil. Right here.
Okay. It's great to meet you. Cheerio.
Thanks, Phil.
Cheerio, everyone. Bye.